Yeah, so we about 5 years ago, my previous role, we had started we focusing a lot on our work with inclusive practices. Um, and as part of that, we began to really look at how we supported teaching assistants first. So we had quite a few teaching assistants across all of the buildings. For the most part, they were all more so in a one-on-one role with students. So we first started to kind of build the capacity of our teaching assistants, building up training sequences for them, so that they have more of the skills to support students in the buildings. And then from there, and just as we've evolved as a district with our work with inclusive practices, really wanting to move away from um, all of these one-on-one TAs to build independence for our students. And what we saw from year to year is we would come into like staffing time and trying to figure out how many, TAs are we hiring from year to year. And it was all dependent on how many one-on-ones we needed, who were the students who needed a TA. And so I felt like it was almost a way of teachers would be requesting one-on-one so that they could make sure they had like that dedicated adult. Otherwise, it wasn't guaranteed that they would be in the building the following year. So it was very, fluid. It was not a reliable, like kind of consistent support that we would have unless it was one-on-one. Backing up even prior to that, 5 years ago, I also put in place, like before that, it was very kind of haphazard as to how even students had a one-on-one, like written into their individualized education plan, their IEP. So we'd gotten just a process in place for that and made it a little bit more database so that it wasn't just like all of a sudden you'd be at IEP meeting and like, okay, they need a one-on-one. So we first try to kind of systematize and like formalize a process for that request, and which helped to a little bit to cut down on that. But still at the end of the day, I felt like it was always dependent on how many students needed a one-on-one. So as we were learning more in the past couple of years, we came across a lot of research from Michael Jean Greco on like the evolving role of teaching assistants, the harmful effects they can have sometimes for students also. And the article that we talk a lot about in our presentation, I think really resonated with us. And that was a year ago that we had received that from Carol Quirk. We've been partnering with the Maryland Coalition for Inclusive Education. And I think that really resonated with us because it was more of a proactive, like inclusive service delivery model, not only looking at teaching assistants, but kind of how do you utilize all adults in your building. And what I really liked about that model, it was really looking at the needs of all students, looking at your number of students that you have across a building, and then you staff based on that instead of based on like individual students that need an adult. And then it becomes more consistent. Like if your overall enrollment, is not fluctuating much, then you keep more of a consistent model of teaching assistants and can utilize them more proactively at a grade level versus just with individual students. And then every year it changes.